Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day today. So, anyways, man, a big UFC fight card ends up happening this weekend, I believe, on Saturday, October 30th, as it says right there. And of course, this is UFC 267. We're actually going to have two very big fight cards when it comes to UFC 2 weeks in a row. Next week, actually, I have to get both UFC 268 and also, I have to get the Canelo Alvarez fight, so that's going to be a very, very exciting day. I can't wait for that day. But anyways, man, when it comes down to it, all in all, it's just going to be very, very exciting. Last time I did my fight predictions on a UFC card, which I believe, of course, was UFC 266. I believe that was the Volkanovski versus Brian Ortega card. I believe that was the last fight card that happened. I actually ended up getting every single one of my predictions on the main card correct, so you actually can get much better than that. I'm trying to remember all the fights that ended up happening there. Obviously, I picked Volkanovski to beat Ortega. I picked Robbie Lawler to beat Nick Diaz. I picked Valentina Shevchenko to beat Murphy. And a couple of other fights, but I don't personally remember. Excuse me. But anyways, when it comes down to it overall, when it comes to this fight card, man, I believe we actually have 6 main events when it comes down to it, or 6 cards on the main fight when it comes down to it on the main card. So I'm going to do my best to predict these fights and give you guys my breakdown as to why I think these fighters will win and why that is. So let's get into it. So anyways, man, so we got 6 pretty damn great fights here. I know every single one of these fighters. And let's just get straight into the conversation. So the first fight is Magomed Ankalaev versus Volkan Ozdemir. I know both of these fighters. Ankalaev, he's kind of new to the scene. All in all, he's known for his pretty grueling fights with that. I don't remember the fighter's name, but they ended up having 2 matches with each other when it came down to it. Ankalaev, he's another one of these Dagestan, another one of these Russian dudes that, you know, he usually, when it comes to his grappling, he's on another level, but Ankalaev, he does not appear to be on the same level as, say, like a Khabib Nurmagomedov or an Islam Makhachev. You know, this dude sometimes does have a little bit of problems. He is a wrestling champion when you take a look at his background. So, obviously, he's a very, very elite wrestler. He is an elite fighter. But if you do look at him in his biggest fight, which was against that one Scottish fighter, I believe Daniel Craig, even though I thought that he was winning that fight in that 3-round fight, he ended up getting tapped out in the final second because he got caught in a triangle that he didn't see coming. That also kind of erases the narrative, in my opinion, that everyone can kind of do what Khabib Nurmagomedov does as long as they learn that type of grappling. Now, excuse me, not everyone learns Sambo overall or Greco-Roman wrestling the way that some of these Russians do, but when it comes down to it overall, Khabib Nurmagomedov is on a completely whole nother level for a reason. When you take a look at his discipline, when you take a look at his athleticism, when you take a look at the execution that he has, Khabib Nurmagomedov's wrestling is pretty much flawless, and that's why I've never even seen Khabib Nurmagomedov in trouble on the ground. Luckily for Ankalaev here, when it comes to Ozdemir, I don't think Ozdemir is necessarily going to be the biggest threat to him on the ground. Every time I've seen Ozdemir against a decent grappler, whether that be against Daniel D.C. Cormier or whether it be against Anthony Lionheart Smith, he almost has gotten tapped out every single time. Not me saying that maybe he won't have a chance. You know, Ankalaev, he is a little bit, excuse me, inexperienced, you know, maybe compared to some of the other opponents that he fought in the past. But all in all, I got to go with Ankalaev on this one. I think all in all that his grappling is going to be major here. I think all in all that he's even going to be the better striker. I think that Ankalaev, he's not a bad striker. He has decent power in his punches. Ozdemir used to be known for the massive amount of power that he had in his punches. But Ozdemir at this point in time in his career, I just don't think that he's really that big of a threat for anyone. I don't think that Ozdemir, I really don't think that he's going to really challenge Magomedov in a whole bunch of ways unless he really can get him inside a clinch and in an advantageous position and get a couple short punches off, or unless Magomedov, he comes in there a little bit straight, which sometimes he does tend to do. Sometimes he will get hit a little bit more than what he probably should, but Ankalaev, when it comes down to it, he has improved, I believe, on his head movement. He has improved all in all on his fighting skills. I got to go with Ankalaev on this one. I got to go with Ankalaev. I think that he's at least going to beat him by unanimous decision. But if he ended up beating him by submission, I would not be surprised. It's just, I don't know if his grappling is necessarily on the same level as some of the other guys that I've seen in the past. Whether we talk about Dagestan wrestlers or whether we talk about even grapplers that fought Ozdemir. So we'll see what happens when it comes down to it. But it'll be very, very interesting. I got Ankalaev in this fight. I'm going to go with unanimous decision. But if a submission did happen, I would not be surprised. This is going to be a little bit of a test for Ankalaev because, as you can see, Ozdemir, he's ranked number 8. I believe that'll be the highest ranked opponent that he's ever fought. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe Daniel Craig. Maybe he's ranked a little bit higher right now. I don't know. But when it comes down to the overall, it'll be very, very interesting. I actually would like to see Ankalaev in a rematch versus Daniel Craig because I think he potentially could win that one. But Daniel Craig could win that one as well because Daniel Craig is a tough SOB when it comes down to it. So we'll see what happens. Anyways, I got Ankalaev in this fight. We'll see what happens. I think the Russian, man, I think that I got to go with my guy here. I think all in all that, I think he's going to get it done. We'll see what happens. Okay, and speaking of more Russians, Khamzat Chimaev versus Li Jingliang, I believe is his name. So Li overall ended up getting a very decent win last time in his fight against Santiago, I believe. Or maybe he fought someone else and lost that last fight, and then he beat Santiago just before them, but I can't remember. Either way, he got a very decent win not too long ago over Santiago Ponzinibbio, I believe, who's a very decent Argentine fighter. You don't see many Argentine fighters in the UFC. Santiago is an A-grade striker. I think, unfortunately for him, that he was a bit rusty because he was out for a very, very long time. And he picked kind of a, not really A-grade opponent, but somewhat of a dangerous opponent. And, Lee, he just ended up landing the right punch and knocked Santiago Ponzinibbio out, which, in my opinion, was a very decent upset. But in UFC, you actually tend to see a hell of a lot more upsets than you would in almost any other sport like boxing or anything like that, especially in combat sports. So Lee, he's nothing to mess around with. He's a powerful striker. He's a decent striker when he needs to be. But Khamzat Chimaev, however you pronounce his name, this dude, man, when it comes to his striking, he's got A-grade power. When it comes to his grappling, it's on another level compared to a lot of other people. I got to go with Khamzat Chimaev on this one. I think Khamzat Chimaev, I think all in all that, I think he's going to get him. And I think all in all that is going to be a stoppage. I think he either knocks Jingliang out, or I think that he submits him. That's what I personally think. I believe this is a 3-round fight. I expect a good performance from Khamzat Chimaev. I think all in all that he may even be the better striker than Jingliang, and all in all, I think that he certainly is the better grappler. We'll see what happens. Jingliang, he always can upset the apple cart because he does seem to have decent power and not the worst striking in the world, and sometimes he does tend to be underestimated, but I don't think Khamzat's going to do that here. I think Khamzat, he's going to take him seriously. And I think all in all that Khamzat, I think he's going to get the job done. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Anyways, so I'm going to go with Khamzat Chimaev. I'm going to say stoppage. I'm going to say it's either going to be by knockout. I'm going to say that it's going to be by knockout within the second round. Wouldn't surprise me if it was within the first round at all. That's a little bit risky to predict that overall. Not that Khamzat Chimaev is going to win this fight, but that it'll be a stoppage at the second round. I'm going to go with Khamzat Chimaev. We'll see over what happens. Okay, so this next fight, heavyweight bout, Alexander Volkov versus Marcin Tybura, I believe is his name. Tybura, I seen him in his last fight, I believe, against Greg Hardy. He may have even won another fight after that. Tybura, he's not a bad fighter at all. He's a little bit of a tricky fighter. When you take a look at him, he doesn't look like he has the best physique. He doesn't look like he would have the best skills in the world, but he's got good power. He doesn't have the worst striking. He doesn't have the worst grappling. He's a somewhat dangerous fighter. And for a 3-round fight, he's a dangerous fighter kind of for anyone out there, unless you're talking about the real A-grade fighters. And Alexander Volkov, I don't know if he's an A-grade fighter. However, I do predict that Alexander Volkov is going to win this fight. Alexander Volkov, in my opinion, he's one of the better gatekeepers out there. If you're an A-grade opponent, if you're a person that is probably going to be, within that top 5 of the heavyweight division, you're more than likely going to beat Alexander Volkov, whether you be, a Daniel Cormier, once upon a time, or a Gane, or a Stipe, or, an Ngannou, somewhere within that sorts. Even Derek Lewis ended up beating him, even though Volkov was, he kind of blew that fight because he was winning the whole entire fight and let himself get knocked out in the final seconds like an idiot. But it is what it is. Alexander Volkov, he's very tall. He's got great reach. He's got decent power. And unless you have elite level grappling or elite level striking, I don't know if you're really going to beat this guy. He is very, very tough to fight. Alexander Volkov overall, he is a tough SOB, except for those real A-grade fighters. And Tybura, I think all in all that he's a decent fighter, but I would not say that he's an A-grade fighter. I'm going to go with Alexander Volkov in this fight. I think all in all that he is going to win this fight. I'm going to predict that it is going to be by unanimous decision. That's what I'm going to predict. If a stoppage were to happen here, would not be surprised, but it's only a 3-round fight. I think Tybura, I think that all in all, he's a tough guy as well. I would not be surprised whichever man won this fight, but I do think that Alexander Volkov, I think that he has to be the favorite in this fight. So we'll see what happens. Anyways, that's my prediction for that. Let's move on to the next one. Islam Makhachev versus Dan Hooker. This may actually be the most exciting matchup of the night. Some people may disagree. Some people may think that that's Petr Yan versus Sandhagen. I say personally that it's this, because this is one where I could easily see either man taking the fight right here. Islam Makhachev, he looked very, very good in his last couple of fights. However, I would not say that Islam Makhachev has really fought one of the super duper top contenders, unless I'm thinking wrong, and I can't really remember who he fought in his last fight. But Dan Hooker, for sure, is going to be the biggest challenge so far in his career. Dan Hooker, man, I mean, you can't get much tougher than this dude. Once upon a time, I never really thought Dan Hooker was going to be that special, but Dan Hooker, he really started to get a little bit better. Dan Hooker, to me, he sometimes still is a little bit too straightforward, meaning that he doesn't move his head all that much, but he's gotten a little bit better at it. And on top of that, Dan Hooker, man, he's so tough. Like, he has great striking, great kicks, brutal knees, very good power as well. I mean, Dustin Poirier, he fought him right after his loss to Khabib Nurmagomedov, and he won that fight literally by, like, by the skin of his teeth. Dustin Poirier, in my opinion, when you talk about all-around skill, now that Khabib Nurmagomedov is out of there, I think Dustin Poirier actually is the most skilled lightweight in the world, and Dan Hooker was able to give that dude all sorts of problems, man. He did get knocked out by Michael Chandler pretty early, but you know, that possibly could have been because of a little bit of the damage that he had against Michael Chandler, or excuse me, against Dustin Poirier. And on top of that, maybe Michael Chandler, maybe he just hit him with the proper punch. I don't know. But Dan Hooker, man, he, I believe, won his last fight. I don't remember who he fought necessarily, but I'm pretty sure he won his last fight. I'm pretty sure he only fought like a month ago, actually, which is pretty crazy. Islam Makhachev, though, this dude is an elite grappler. That's what he's going to rely on here. Overall, you know, he is one of these Dagestan boys. He comes from the Khabib Nurmagomedov camp. These Dagestan wrestlers, man, they usually are on another level, but I still have yet to see one that is on the same level as Khabib Nurmagomedov. Islam Makhachev, he pretty much is looked at as the poor man's version of Khabib Nurmagomedov. Islam Makhachev is a very good grappler. Dan Hooker also is a decent grappler. I've seen him against Dustin Poirier, who I think all in all is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that is to be taken very, very seriously. This is going to be an interesting fight. I'm going to go with Islam Makhachev by decision, but if it were a split decision or a majority decision, or if Dan Hooker somehow were able to get him out of there, and on top of that, I don't know if this is a 3-round fight or a 5-round fight, because I know Dan Hooker, he said that he wanted it to be a 5-round fight, but I'm not sure if Dana White really changed that, so I don't know necessarily what's going on there. I think if it's a 3-round fight, I think the more that favors Dan Hooker. I think if it's a 5-round fight, the more it favors Islam Makhachev. However, you can actually kind of argue either way, because Islam Makhachev against elite opponents, he is heavily inexperienced. Dan Hooker, he's been there. You know, I don't think he's ever going to be a champion, but Dan Hooker, man, he's going to be one of the toughest, like, top-tier gatekeepers ever. Because Dan Hooker, man, if you're not careful, he can beat the hell out of you. And that's why I'm so excited. Dan Hooker, he's not the worst grappler in the world. He's got excellent power, excellent striking abilities. Islam Makhachev is really in for a tough fight if he does not play his cards right. I'm going to go with Islam Makhachev. But if somehow Dan Hooker pulled this fight off, I would not be surprised. I'm going to expect Islam Makhachev to out-grapple Dan Hooker. But if he's not able to, it's going to be a very tough fight. Because I'm not sure if Islam Makhachev can outstrike Dan Hooker. But that'll be very, very interesting. Anyways, that's my prediction there. I'm going to go with Islam Makhachev by decision. I think all in all that it's very possible we may see a split decision, or we may see all in all a very close decision, but we'll see what happens. You never know. If Islam Makhachev is really able to pull off this fight and is really able to be dominant, he certainly all in all is, you know, going to go up on my list, no doubt about it. But anyways, I got to go with Islam Makhachev. We'll see how good he looks. Be very interesting. Okay, so the next fight, a lot of people may argue that this is the most entertaining fight of the night, the Petr Yan versus Corey Sandhagen fight. Petr Yan, unfortunately for him, lost his title earlier in the year when he pulled off that idiot move against Aljamain Sterling and ended up kneeing him in the face on the ground, apparently him and his corner not knowing the rules. Now, do I think Aljamain Sterling kind of played it off a little bit? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, you can't be making stupid mistakes like that. And all in all, him and his corner should have knew better. That is a worldwide UFC rule. I mean, you can't do something like that. It is what it is. Unfortunately for Petr Yan, he was winning that whole entire fight, I believe, and he probably still should be the champion right now. But unfortunately for him, he pulled that idiot move. So it is what it is. Corey Sandhagen is a very tough fight when it comes down to it. But I don't believe that Corey Sandhagen is on the level of a Petr Yan. I like Corey. I think that Corey, all in all, is a decent fighter. He's tough. He's got great power. But I don't think Corey Sandhagen, I don't think he has what it takes to be a champion. And some people, they may disagree, but all in all, he did have a very tough fight with TJ Dillashaw, but that was with TJ Dillashaw having like 2 years layoff all in all, and so it is what it is. Some people thought Corey Sandhagen won that fight. I gave it to TJ Dillashaw just by a little bit. I don't think Corey Sandhagen is one of the top 3 135-pounders in the world. And some people may disagree. I don't think he's on the TJ Dillashaw level. I don't think he's on the Aljamain Sterling level. And I certainly don't think he's on the Petr Yan level. Petr Yan might be the best all-around, most talented 135-pounder in the world. But he really has to make sure that he beats the hell out of Corey Sandhagen. And that all in all, that he means business. Because Corey Sandhagen, if you take him seriously, if you're a really talented opponent, I don't think he's going to be able to beat you. And I'm talking about the creme de la creme. Corey Sandhagen, in my opinion, is a very, very top-tier gatekeeper. And some people may disagree. But every time I've seen Corey Sandhagen in an A-grade fight, he's lost. It is what it is. He lost against Aljamain Sterling not too long ago within like 30 seconds by submission. He lost to TJ Dillashaw in a very tough fight. But that was against the TJ Dillashaw that had a 2-year layoff. So I have to put that into account. And on top of that, when it comes down to it, now you're facing Petr Yan. So what is Corey Sandhagen really made out of? I know that he can punch. I know he has great power. I know all in all that he's a very dangerous striker. But I don't like Corey Sandhagen's striking style. And the reason why that is because Corey Sandhagen, he reminds me a lot of Anthony Pettis or someone all in all that really just tries to impress and tries to knock you out with one shot. That's great, but if that's not working, then how the hell are you going to knock him out? And, he is a decent grappler from what I remember. He's got some wrestling background and got some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background. Petr Yan, in my opinion, is the best 135-pounder in the world when you talk about all-around skills. His striking and his boxing is better than Corey Sandhagen. I think he has way more than enough power to knock him out. I think all in all that his wrestling and his ground game is better than Corey Sandhagen. If Petr Yan takes this guy seriously, and hopefully for him does not pull off any idiotic moves like he did against Aljamain Sterling, I think he wins this fight, and I believe this is for the interim 135-pound belt. I think that Petr Yan wins this fight by knockout. I think that he wins it by knockout. Like I said, I like Corey. I think Corey is a decent fighter, but I don't see him ever being a champion. I just don't. I don't see Corey Sandhagen ever being a champion in that division. If Petr Yan, once again, if he does not take him seriously, or if he makes some very crucial mistakes, Corey Sandhagen can get the job done, but Petr Yan, he always takes his fights seriously. He's a very decently smart fighter, except in certain moments where he pulls off, certain things that are against the rules. But Petr Yan, man, he's on another level. Petr Yan, in my opinion, is the most skilled fighter in the world. I got to go with Petr Yan by knockout. I think he's going to knock out Sandhagen within 3 to 4 rounds. If I'm wrong about that, then someone correct me, but we'll see what happens. Anyways, when it comes down to it, that'll be very, very interesting. We'll see what happens. And the last fight, of course, of the day, Jan Blachowicz versus Glover Teixeira. Glover Teixeira actually is on a very decent roll. I believe that he beat Anthony Lionheart-Smith, who's not a bad fighter, and he beat someone else that was, I think he also beat Thiago Santos. Those are 2 very decent contenders, man. That's not bad when it comes down to it. So, all in all, man, Glover Teixeira, he's got great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He always had. He's always been a very decent Jiu-Jitsu artist. He's got a little bit of a wrestling background, I believe, as well. If I'm wrong about that, then someone correct me. Jan Blachowicz is a great fighter, though, as well. and he's got great grappling. He seems like he has a little bit of a wrestling background. And on top of that, Jan Blachowicz, I think, is going to have the complete striking advantage. And Jan Blachowicz, he's a person all in all that he can really knock you out with one solid punch. This dude has power like I've never seen overall in the, well, I don't see very often in the light heavyweight division. Let's just say that, because there has been some all-time great punchers there, like Anthony Rumble Johnson, Chuck Liddell, and, you know, a couple of other guys like Ozdemir and stuff. But Jan Blachowicz, man, this dude is so built. This man is so big with his upper body, even his lower body when it comes down to it. This man is just one big muscle, you know, and I think he's a very skilled fighter too. He has a great amount of, you know, tools. He's got great striking. He's got great punches. He's got great wrestling. He's got, you know, pretty damn good grappling. I think Jan Blachowicz should be able to win this fight. If Glover Teixeira somehow were able to pull off a submission, or if he somehow were able to land a good shot, I wouldn't be overly surprised. Let's just say if Glover Teixeira pulled off this fight, I wouldn't be shell-shocked. But I do expect Jan Blachowicz to win this fight. I think that this is a 70-30 fight in favor of Jan Blachowicz. And I think that he's going to get it done by knockout. This is a 5-round fight. I think Jan Blachowicz more than likely going to get him out of there within 3 to 4 rounds. But don't underestimate Glover Teixeira. He may make this a very tough fight after all. We'll see what happens. Anyways, that's really about it for my predictions. So my predictions are set right now. Not changing them for right now. If I do, I'll let y'all know. But I got Jan Blachowicz, Petr Yan, Islam Makhachev, Alexander Volkov, Khamzat Chimaev, and Magomed Ankalaev. Those are my predictions. We'll see if I get all 6 of these guys right. Last time, I ended up getting every single one of my predictions right on the fight card. However, if you know UFC, and if you try to predict anything, you know, when it comes to either combat sports or sports in general, you know that getting almost every prediction right within a week or, you know, within one night, it's very, very hard to do because you just never know what's going to happen. So we'll see what happens. Anyways, the goal is to get 6-0, 6-0. We'll see what happens. That's really all I got for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you all later.